If you're looking for a hyper-realistic, post-apocalyptic city builder colony sim, this is probably a game worth checking out. New Cycle has just launched in early access, and I was lucky enough to get granted an early peek into the game. In this video, I'm going to be giving a full review on the game, rating it from decaf to fully caffeinated. Now, it goes without saying that this is an early access review, so that has been taken into account. But without further ado, let's grind this game down and see how it brews. New Cycle takes place in the post-apocalyptic world. The Earth has been destroyed by intense solar storms that led to the downfall of modern civilization, and the creature comforts and technology humanity once knew were taken down with it. You're tasked with establishing a new settlement made up of those who managed to somehow survive. But you're pretty limited with technology and resources, so you'll need to work your way up from a crude makeshift settlement all the way into a bustling city. As a city builder colony sim game, New Cycle actually has a pretty intricate story woven in that is quite impactful on the actual gameplay itself. The game has a series of different randomized events that occur, each with different consequences depending on how you choose to deal with them, and in a lot of ways the game kind of feels like a choose your own adventure story. You're driven to innovate and research new tech to give your settlement a chance of standing up against the treacherous weather conditions, and as you progress you'll notice that in many ways history may be repeating itself. So you'll need to try and prevent humanity from succumbing to solar storms, or worse, humanity itself. New Cycle presents a really cool and immersive storyline that drives progression, but also allows you a lot of freedom as to how you play the game. Will you be a fair and just ruler, or become a dictator? Will you take on the Confederation, or provide them with their demands? It's up to you to decide. For this type of game, it can often be tricky to get the balance right, but in New Cycle, they've definitely nailed it. So for story and world building, I'm rating New Cycle as fully caffeinated. City builders and colony sim games usually have a lot in common when it comes to game mechanics, and New Cycle definitely follows a lot of the typical elements you'd expect in this genre of game. You need to collect different resources such as wood, stone, iron and coal, as well as various different food types like mushroom, meat and fish. You'll need to manage your power and water consumption, ensuring adequate water and power are being produced to run your settlement and keep your citizens happy. As you progress, you'll unlock various different production buildings where you can turn these resources into other items that can then be used for building or for further production. New Cycle definitely has a complex take on resource management, with each building being able to collect or produce a few different types of items, which can make it more challenging to optimize your production. Take food production for example. Not only do you need to collect different food items, but you'll also need to decide which recipes you want your kitchens to make, and each recipe requires certain different resources. Some resources can be collected through foraging or hunting via your field camps, but others you need farms to grow. You'll also have different tiers of food, with each tier providing a different level of nutrition and having an effect on your citizens' morale. You need to add workers to each building for the building to operate, and the more you add, the more items it'll produce. You can also train up workers to higher levels that can be assigned to select buildings, which increases the productions of those buildings. And it's integral to make sure you're producing more than you're consuming. Now, I mentioned morale before, and that's probably one of the most important considerations you'll need to manage alongside your resources. Your citizens all have a morale level which is influenced by food quality, ration amounts, water, tools, clothes, housing, entertainment, and more. Certain events, such as bad weather, can have a negative effect on morale. Likewise, if you have lower rationing of food or water, it can also have a negative effect. You'll need to make sure you have adequate housing, healthcare, and entertainment, and even some of the policies you set can all have an impact, leading to higher or lower morale levels. If morale falls too low, it can lead to strikes, poor production outcomes, and even people leaving altogether. So it's pretty important to keep an eye on. If you love a good research tree, you'll be pretty happy with the one in New Cycle. Researching new tech is crucial to your settlement's development, and there's a huge range of different items, buildings, and actions that can all be unlocked as you progress. New Cycle kind of takes a similar approach to Age of Empires, but instead of ages, you'll have cycles that you progress through that are largely based on your knowledge level and the amount of people you have in your settlement. Each cycle unlocks the next tier of the research tree, allowing you to progress your settlement further, which is crucial to your survival. Believe it or not, there is even more to the management side of this game, which, as I said before, is pretty complex. This is definitely a game that keeps you on your toes, and with the randomly generated events that can have both negative and positive effects, the game feels really engaging. I'm often one who likes to speed things up, as I can get a little bit underwhelmed with how much there is to do, but I found myself having to frequently slow down so I could get a handle of managing things and process the changes my different decisions made. For an early access game, I didn't run into any bugs. The only issue that I had was that the load time was quite long, but once you're in the game, it runs really smoothly and it feels pretty balanced to play. There's definitely a learning curve as to how to balance your settlement's growth with making technological progress, but it makes the game challenging in a fun way rather than a frustrating one. It's definitely a game that feels replayable too, with different maps available that each have different resource distributions, adding a whole lot of bang for your buck. Overall, the complex management mechanics are really engaging and challenging, and it's just a really fun game to play. So for game mechanics, I'm rating New Cycle as fully caffeinated. If there was one part of New Cycle that I could not get over, it was definitely the graphics. I mean, look at how stunning this game is. The New Cycle world is definitely brought to life by the graphic style of the game with the almost realistic feel, and the color scheme is perfect for a post-apocalyptic world. You can tell a whole lot of work has gone into the lighting and texture construction, and elements like the seasonal weather changes and storms really bring the game to life. The UI is thoughtfully designed and easy to understand. I particularly love being able to swap out what resources are in the quick look section, and the information that shows up when you hover over these aspects is really useful. The music for the game definitely sets the period for the world with an almost eerie horror feel to it. It definitely creates the life or death atmosphere in the game, but in a way that provides a really great landscape to run your settlement to. The sound effects are similarly well designed and curated, and provide extra information about what's happening in your settlement in a way that feels constructive. For an early access game, I was not expecting the game to look and feel so polished in terms of design, and I was pleasantly surprised at how incredible this game looks. So for graphics and sound, I'm rating New Cycle as fully caffeinated. New Cycle brings a pretty new take on a city builder colony sim game. The post-apocalyptic setting is not something new, but the way it's done in this game does feel really unique in that it feels like it's a more realistic, grungy take. A lot of the core elements in the game aren't original. However, what New Cycle has done so well is take those core concepts that we're familiar with and evolve them in a different way. I absolutely love the choices matter element the game has introduced, and this game has one of the most plausible storylines I've played in this genre. Overall, the game feels like a really innovative take on the city builder colony sim genre. So for Originality, I'm rating New Cycle as juiced. New Cycle is an early access city builder / colony sim with a really rich story where your choices make a difference to what happens in your settlement. The game takes some familiar mechanics in this genre and kicks them up a notch, creating a game that feels innovative, complex, and engaging to play. The graphics look absolutely stunning, and the sound design provides a grungy atmosphere to run your settlement to. I honestly cannot believe this is an early access game, as it feels polished and balanced to play. We've ground the beans, we've carefully weighed and pressed the grinds and brewed this game down. Now, it's time for a taste test. New Cycle is fully caffeinated. New Cycle is available in early access on Steam now. You can find the link in the description below. And if you're still not sure about whether or not this is the game for you, you can watch me play through the first couple of games in this video right here. Until next time, stay caffeinated.